Welcome, Dolphins fans, haters, and everyone in between to your favorite show discussing the greatest franchise in sports, the Miami Dolphins. This is the PhinsPod. My name is Moose, your host, and today we're going to discuss recent developments out of Miami's search for a new offensive coordinator. We'll also talk about the bombshell article, which is catching a lot of buzz, both locally and nationally, regarding how the Dolphins feel about Tua Tagovailoa internally. Well, at least some Dolphins players, some anonymous Dolphins players. We'll talk about that. And as always, we'll take a quick look at the latest stories published over at PhinsPod.com. Before we get started, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts for the show if you do use Apple. It really does help us out and helps other Dolphins fans find us and join the pod. But without further ado, let's dive in.
Gailey, I have no idea what the hell happened with him in Miami, right? No idea. When Tua was in Arizona, going toe-to-toe with Kyler Murray in one of the more exciting games of the year to that point in time. And Tua had that third quarter drive where he was hitting on every throw and people were open and he was dynamite. I came on this show and saying, what a story this is in the NFL. Gailey was out of football. Now he's back and now he's saddled up hip to hip with one of the top prospects for an organization that allegedly tanked for him. And here they are.
Worked out.
Then it went to crap. Now he's out of a job. Did he forget how to coach? Is it a bad mix? What was going on behind the scenes? Did he and Tua not relate in a certain way? Is it possible that he wasn't talking Tua's language? There's so much going on there. And now that Chan's out, now the conversation that gets louder with each passing day that Tua has nothing to do with, he is trash, according to many members of our talent evaluation community and the Twitterverse. Literally, like he's finished in Miami. Like the Miami Dolphins missed on him. Justin Herbert is a clear, surefire hit, and Tua is not. And he is going to be on the move. Deshaun's like Deshaun Watson smelling blood in the water. He wants out where he is, and he thinks Miami would definitely take him because, look at Tua.
So shortly following the publishing of the previous episode, a clearly defined list of candidates emerged for the Dolphins offensive coordinator position. Those names were some guys that we talked about, so current Dolphins tight end coach George Godsey, as well as current Dolphins running back coach Eric Studesville. Again, there is a chance that the team promotes from within, and initially, that's what I thought. It's similar to what they did last offseason on the defensive side of the ball with Josh Boyer, but considering how important this decision is and how important Tua's overall development is for the franchise going forward, I think Flores and Greer may look to bring in an experienced veteran voice into the building to add to the support staff to help complement guys like Studesville and Godsey rather than promote from within and maybe potentially risk some inexperience really showing itself next year when you can't afford that. You really need the year 1 to year 2 jump for Tua Tagovailoa to be the biggest in his career. And in order to ensure that, you need a coach who's done that and worked with a quarterback in that transition before. And I'm not entirely sure that Studesville or Godsey is really a great option for that. Now, in terms of continuity and comfortability for the offense as a whole, you know what? It might not be the worst, and it could end up looking good. But I think there's a bigger risk when you go with an unknown compared to some of these other candidates who have a lot more experience. So the other guys on the list were former Chargers quarterback coach Pep Hamilton. We spoke about him and his experience with developing some really good young talent, and he definitely is known for instilling confidence in his quarterbacks, and Tua needs some of that right now. I believe he's a confident guy, but there's no way your ego can't take a hit when the national media and local media just rip you a new one when, frankly, you didn't even do that bad. So having a coach who really instills some confidence in him, the way that Pep Hamilton was able to for Justin Herbert and Andrew Luck before him. So I think Pep Hamilton wouldn't be a bad option as well. There was also Clemson offensive coordinator Tony Elliott. He informed Miami and some other teams that were interested in him that he would be returning to Clemson, so he's a no-go. And it was an intriguing name, and it kind of showed that the Dolphins were really kind of expanding their search far and wide and looking at candidates who, might not be the first ones that come to mind. Tony Elliott, although pretty well respected, wasn't really thought of to be making a leap from the college game, yet. But the fact that the Dolphins were on it and kind of were the leaders regarding some of the teams that he potentially was interviewing for, I think shows how their overall search is going. And the next name on the list, perfect example, 49ers run game coordinator Mike McDaniels. He's definitely an intriguing name, now was definitely an intriguing name. He's young, bright, and has a lot of reports indicate that he knows the game of football extremely well, specifically the offensive side of the ball, and he's a major factor in the Niners' ability to run with so much success. But he's not going to be coming to Miami, even though a lot of fans, including myself, once I sort of got to know his resume, he's not coming to Miami as he was promoted from within in San Francisco, and he's going to be Shanahan's next offensive coordinator as their offensive coaches have been sort of poached this offseason, and it appears some may be joining Saleh at the Jets, and we'll get into that as well. So other than Pep Hamilton and the internal options, Miami has interviewed one more guy, Steelers quarterback coach Matt Canada. And we have not talked a lot about Matt Canada before, and other than Hamilton, I really do think Matt Canada is probably the next in line or one of the top candidates. The way, if I had to guess right now, I would think Matt Canada is the choice. And then after that, Pep Hamilton, and then potentially internally. Obviously, I could be wrong, and Pep Hamilton is the guy. But they have definitely taken a strong look at Matt Canada, and there's definitely some evidence to suggest that he would be a strong candidate. So we'll jump into that. He has experience with this specific Dolphins regime, which is really the number one reason why I think he has a good shot. He consulted for Brian Flores and the Dolphins prior to the 2019 season, and that was before he joined Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh and became the Steelers quarterback coach. So overall, who the hell is this guy with the last name of an inferior country, Matt Canada? I'm sorry for Canadian listeners. Canada's a wonderful place. But the more you look into him, the more exciting of an overall candidate he becomes. It seems that wherever he goes, he's able to sort of orchestrate an overall good offensive attack. He made most of his bones in the college game. He's pretty new to the professional game, but he definitely has worked in a lot of college stops. He coached at Northern Illinois, Indiana. He was the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at Wisconsin, NC State, and LSU. In 2016, he was actually the offensive coordinator for the Pitt Panthers, and he led them to a record-breaking season. They had a top 10 offense that year nationwide, and that's something Pitt has been unable to match since his departure. Now, that 2016 Pitt team, that had the likes of James Conner and Nathan Peterman. So yes, you can say, hey, Matt Canada had one of the best running backs in Pitt history. Yes, that's true, but he had Nathan Peterman, and he made Nathan Peterman a draftable quarterback. So I think that says a lot about some of that development that we're looking for. In a Sports Illustrated article, a former player of Canada's from his time at LSU called his offense, quote, dummy-proof, and said that it was hard to defend but easy to learn. So that's good, considering Miami's coming from some very complicated offenses before. And yeah, although Chan Gailey's offense was sort of simplified, clearly his being out of the game for so long it showed, and defenses were able to predict what the Dolphins were doing with a lot of ease, while Canada is sort of fresh and up and coming, where I think he's more known for keeping defenses on their toes. So conceptually, his offense involves a lot of shifts and motions from receivers, tight ends, running backs. The goal from, what I've sort of been able to glean is he wants to set up the defense to fail by forcing them into a bad look for whatever play that the offense wants to run. So using this motion can open up lanes for the running game, create space for wide receivers, as well as allows for shots to be taken when the defense is anticipating something specific because you're running the same motion you did the drive before, but in reality, you're using it as a decoy. So there's a lot of shifts, motions, confusion, a lot of work with the alignments pre-snap to sort of manipulate the defense. And Canada definitely uses a lot of modern concepts, relying on something, that we've heard before, spacing, which I know is a buzzword, and you hear that all the time. Oh, the new game involves a lot of spacing, and it feels like every new coach, even Chan Gailey's offense was known for spacing. But, there's different types of spacing, and unlike Chan Gailey's interpretation of that, Canada likes to stretch the defense around the field rather than Gailey's reliance on timing throws to certain spots. So Chan Gailey's offense, the receivers loved because he allowed them to sort of do whatever they wanted in their route running, to get to a certain spot within a certain time. If the leverage isn't what you expect, if the corner's playing you a certain way, whatever, if you feel like a certain move is going to work, Chan Gailey was all for letting receivers do what they wanted to get to a spot. So that way, when Tua's going through his progressions, he knows where to hit someone. While Matt Canada's interpretation of spacing is literally to get guys in motion so that they're going faster pre-snap than the defenders and are able to literally force defenses to start running. And so that way Tua can kind of lead receivers in his offense rather than a lot of sort of the back shoulder throws we saw with Chan Gailey, a lot of sort of the short stuff, the quick screen, stuff like that, yes, it spaces a defense out, but it sort of it's not a moving offense. It doesn't feel like, there's a lot of movement, while Matt Canada is literally known for his ability to move guys all over the field and create those matchups, as well as some spacing problems for the defense and opening up gaps that the offense can then take advantage of. And that's something that I really do believe Tua Tagovailoa could thrive in, and especially with a guy who has shown to develop quarterbacks wherever he goes, and most recently, even with the corpse of Ben Roethlisberger playing for the Steelers, was able to give them a pretty good year. So Matt Canada is definitely an intriguing option, and someone we're going to dive into if he is brought in. So overall, the list of candidates was refreshing, and it showed that the team wanted to move in a direction that was forward-thinking and is forward-thinking, which is great, but a direction that's also supportive of their quarterback style of play. So be sure to come back once the hiring is made official. We'll be here to break it all down, see how the new offensive coordinator fits with the current roster, what type of pieces Miami might look to bring in. So be sure to check back in once that hiring is announced, and I'm absolutely excited to see what Flores does year 3.
Armando Salguerro, the Miami Herald, had an interesting story yesterday about Tua Tagovailoa. The Dolphins came out immediately after the season ended and said that Tua will be the starting quarterback in 2021. That came straight from GM Chris Greer, Coach Brian Flores on board. Salguerro has, and look, you can understand why the players would not want to be named here, 3 unnamed players who aren't sold on Tua. And that's not a shock. I think most people, other than Brian Flores and Chris Greer, are taking a let's wait and see. We're not quite sure what this guy is going to be, and we're concerned he's never going to be as good as Justin Herbert was in his rookie year.
Yeah, there has to be some sort of concern there. And as we've talked about before, listen, players, once they get to see you in person and do all that stuff, they know more times than not. And let's not forget, a lot of these Dolphins players saw Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert on the field this year. So they saw that, and they went, wait, our guy doesn't look like those two guys. So I think anybody who watched football and has somewhat of an understanding, if you're going to be totally unbiased and realistic about it, you're going to go, wait, hey, I saw a few things I like, but wait, how good can he be? I think that's a legitimate question for anybody watching the sport right now. Now, the question is going to be like kind of what you said there at the end. Do Chris Greer and Brian Flores, are they really all in? I think, and I've heard some people who know people down there in Miami where there is true questions about Tua within the organization. And I think that the conversation of we might draft another quarterback is not dead yet in Miami. I don't think it's dead, and I think that's going to be something to watch for. They could be one of those, under-the-radar teams that's doing quarterback diligence here, and don't be shocked. So I'll be surprised or interested to see where this goes, because I certainly don't think he did anything in my mind to go, oh, he's the future, there's no doubts about him, and we're good to go. I don't know about that yet.
Armando. Earlier this week, a story was published, which was picked up nationally, and reported that some anonymous players on the Dolphins, keyword anonymous players, do not believe in Tua, and were upset when the decision to switch from Fitzpatrick to Tagovailoa was made. The article goes into further detail, but in all honesty, I don't really give a damn. I don't think you really do either. Now, Armando Salguerro, you may think whatever you want about the guy. I respect his work, following him for a few years. I wouldn't say following, I think sort of thrown into my face, as not a ton of people talked about the Dolphins. So local reporters are still sort of the first go-to to get the pulse of what's going on in Davie. So I've respected his work. I think he's a pretty good writer. And I mean in terms of like ability to write, grammar, sentence structure. But there's no doubt that the man has quite the ego, just from the way he asks questions, his snarky, overall demeanor, his kind of know-it-all attitude, just to his takes, which just seem to change with the wind, as well as some of his personal views, which we won't get into. I find the guy a little shady. And when I say shady, I don't mean that I think he made this whole story up just for clicks and attention in an offseason where a lot of people are interested in the Dolphins. But, and I do believe that there are NFL players who spoke to him. But when I say shady, and I think he's shady, I mean, I don't trust the framing of this story. I fully believe that he framed this for maximum attention. I can guarantee you that whatever players said, whoever said this, they're disgruntled players. Like, no company man who's bought into what Flores is selling would speak to Armando Salguerro and slander their starting quarterback as an anonymous source. You know who would do that? A player with something against the team who likely knows that they're on the way out. They're a fringe player. Maybe some players do feel that way about Tua Tagovailoa internally, but they're not going to vocalize it to the local media. Only people who have something to gain from that would do that. And the only players with something to gain is when they're on the way out and want to hurt, the Dolphins' image, want to, sort of cause some issues, leave the room kicking and screaming, so to speak. So whether it's a practice squad player, a defensive player down on the depth chart, or a wide receiver who, might have had some success with fits, but knows that they're going to get replaced because their skill set just doesn't fit with Tua. And it's clear based on the moves that the team's making that they're looking for players who fit Tua, as we saw Lynn Bowden emerge, and we saw sort of the usage of, more receiving backs and running backs who help Tua Tagovailoa. Definitely shows that there are certain receiver types who might be on the way out just because they don't fit schematically with what Tua does best. But whoever these players are, they're clearly not long in the tooth for the Dolphins. That's clear. I don't know about you, but when I saw the team rally around Tua many times throughout the season, I felt like he was supported and they liked him. Look, he's a rookie, 22 during the season. Of course, he doesn't carry the weight that a 16-year pro will. But the team loved the kid, and it was clear from the way they spoke of him, from Christian Wilkins, one of the defensive leaders. You saw the way he talked about him in interviews, as well as, mic'd up. That's genuine stuff. They're not thinking about how that conversation is going to be framed after the fact. In the middle of a game, they're just talking from the heart, and there's clearly a love and support for Tua. And whatever they might have issues with his skill, some players might genuinely believe, and it's their right, that Tua doesn't have, that second gear. He's not going to develop. But for a player to come out and say it and slander a 22-year-old kid, who's in the position that Tua's in, that's not someone who I think is affiliated with the team long term. And I think they know that. And I think Armando knows that. This is why I sort of ripped him at the start. I think he knows that if everyone had the information, this story wouldn't be as big as it is, because everyone would be like, wait, they said that? Yeah, of course they said that. So that's what I meant by the overall framing. And it's not just Christian Wilkins, Devontae Parker on social media and Savon Ahmed and Myles Gaskin, Ted Karras, Robert Hunt, Austin Jackson. I just find the overall article to be very clickbaity and a manipulation of the current narrative to maximize attention. And look, hey, we live in a time where people choose to believe what they want to, and rather than take a good look at the messenger and instead of focusing on the validity of who's speaking to them, they just eat it up, and the next thing you know, idiots are running around speaking out of their ass. So that's the sad part of all this. And the other sad part about this is we all know Armando Salguerro will be writing articles during next season praising Tua and his leadership and his relationship with his teammates, and knowing Armando, his devout relationship with God. So like I said, Mr. Salguerro, he blows in the wind, and right now the wind is blowing hard against Tua, so it's no surprise that he's running with it. So just some general notes around the league, sort of getting off that. And I do think that article will be sort of laughed about, a year from now. Or, he could have beaten us all. And if Tua actually sucks and we're all blind, we'll be like, oh, Salguero was right. And, personally, I don't foresee that coming. I don't think a lot of fans do either. But, excuse me, I think we'll just leave that there. Some general notes from around the league. So our neighbors up north hired a new coach as the Jaguars made it official with former Gator legend and most recently Ohio State coach Urban Meyer. He does have a connection with Justin Fields. So that's going to be a narrative everyone has to listen to. Like, hey, yes, there's Trevor Lawrence, but hey, it's Jacksonville who has the number one pick. And similar to Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray, maybe there's nah. We all know the pick is Trevor Lawrence. If not, then the hire's already failed. You've already failed if you don't take Trevor Lawrence in this draft. And trust me, we're going to get into draft talk in a matter of weeks. And our other neighbors up north, except the type of neighbors that you hate with a passion and consistently call the cops on and leave shit on their doorstep, the New York Jets have hired former San Francisco 49ers defensive coordinator, Robert Saleh. And I mentioned that before in the pod, but Saleh, honestly, I hate to say it, good hire. He's a great culture guy, but I'm not as sold as some others in terms of his success. That's not because of Saleh himself. Like I said, I like him, and I think he's going to end up being a good coach for a long, long time in the league. I just don't know if any one man can turn around the dumpster fire being run up there. That's all. The media and overall incompetency from upper management and ownership may eat the poor guy alive. But hey, he is the first Muslim head coach in the NFL, so that's pretty fucking cool, and shows some progress from the league. And look, I hope the Jets fail miserably, but he lands on his feet elsewhere and finds some success because, fuck the Jets. And on that note, thank you guys so much for listening. That's going to do it for us here. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Hopefully we'll be talking offensive coordinator next time we speak. Thank you for tuning in. I really hope you enjoyed it as always. Please remember to subscribe to the show wherever it is that you listen. Just to never miss a chance to chat about your favorite team, the Miami Dolphins. The show itself is available on all platforms: Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and YouTube. Continue the conversation on Twitter and Instagram with us at PhinsPod, and check out the site for news and content, phinspod.com. I hope you have an amazing day, and until next time, stay safe. Love y'all.